everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Procensis podcast, where we teach you how to create warehouse superheroes by bringing you all the latest technology in mobility and hands-free computing and barcode scanning. I am joined today by my friend Peter Allenspach. He is the Vice President of Sales for US and Canada for Ivanti Wavelink, and I could not be more delighted that we're getting back to normal, that I have Peter Allenspach here live with me in the Procensis Solutions Center here in Warminster, Pennsylvania. And I'm just super excited because, frankly, we love Ivanti Wavelink here at Procensis. So this is just a great conversation for us. So welcome, Peter.
Chuck, thank you. And we love Procensis as well. You guys are doing things with our software that, takes it beyond the realm of just a piece of software that makes a connection for someone in the warehouse. So thank you. It's great to be here. And I love also being here out in front of customers, in front of our partners. So perfect.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a big opportunity right around the time of this, that we're recording this podcast. We're right on the heels or on the toes of Modex here down in Atlanta. And I understand toward the end of this podcast, we're going to have a little announcement of something new from Ivanti Wavelink that you'll be announcing at Modex.
Totally.
So stay tuned. So for those of you who didn't go to Modex, I'm really sorry that we missed you, but you'll be able to hear a little bit more about it at the end of this podcast. So stay tuned to the end. All right, let's get started.
Perfect.
Peter, Ivanti Wavelink.
Yes.
Tell me all about it. I mean,
Okay.
it's not exactly the kind of thing that everybody,
Right.
learns about every day.
Yeah, so Ivanti Wavelink, been around for about 30 years now.
Hmm.
So, we've been doing this a long time. Essentially what we do in a nutshell is supply chain software. We help customers that I say at the computing edge. At the edge for us is what you do and what your strengths are as well at Procensis is in the warehouse typically, right? And how do we make those users more productive, better at their job, and so on and so forth. So that's what we do. There's some ancillary products that we have as well, but that's the foundational solution that we offer. And, again, it's like doing it with partners such as Procensis, be able to take our software and make it more effective and more useful and drive productivity are kind of the keys for what we do.
Wow. We're definitely going to dig into this a little deeper. A lot of what we do, as you say, it is really built on software platforms such as, those which we're going to talk about today. And we understand the benefits. But since it's not so common to everyone else, I want to take a little deeper dive.
Sure.
Before we do that, we have a little introductory video that we're going to show you that really kind of gives you a little idea for what Ivanti Wavelink software platforms are about. And then we're going to take that deeper dive.
Think we're just a green screen company? Really? Imagine you could modernize your applications, display product images, connect to mobile printers, industrial IoT, automate processes, enable voice activation, heads-up display, display put-away locations, pick and put to light, integrate Workforce Connect. We deliver all of this and more. Still think we're just a green screen company? Think again.
Wow. There's really a lot to unpack there. And that's really where I want to go next, is I want to just take this deeper dive to really help folks understand and really make it real to them.
Sure. Yeah, and when you talk about the green screen part of it, right? So first and foremost, I think you start there, which is, warehouse applications 20, 30 years ago were created and they were displayed with green characters on a black background on these mobile devices, right? That was current technology back in the day.
Yeah, and it looked really cool on the Matrix, didn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not so useful in a warehouse.
Love the Matrix analogy, no question about it. Yeah. I think there's a change in the code somewhere there. So, so we have the green screen, and it's still very common today. That's what a lot of selectors in a warehouse, whatever you want to call them in the warehouse, are using that user interface. Well, as I think most of us know, there's a little bit more current technology out there.
Yeah, there sure is.
And so the idea is that you can use Terminal Emulation today. It's still very common to make a connection from a handheld, a tablet, a vehicle mount, in the warehouse to some back-end warehouse management system
Sure.
application,
Sure.
which is great. That's what it's designed for. That's its basic purpose. But what we just talked about, or you saw in the video, was taking that beyond just basic connection and taking it into how can we make the user or the selector in the warehouse more productive, better at what they do, solve customer problems. And if we can take it beyond just the basic green screen, we are now looking at maybe changing the user interface, making it look prettier, more current. We can add potentially voice picking on top of the software, again, driving productivity, maybe improving accuracy, changing workflow processes so that it's more optimized than what had been developed 20 years ago without going back in to the application on the back end and making radical changes, which are very costly, time consuming, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what we're doing there.
So let's talk about this. So you mentioned you know, I'll use my words, but essentially what they're trying to fix, accomplish, or avoid. Okay,
Right.
what are these warehouses and what are these supply chain organizations trying to accomplish? So what are the things? Again, I think you touched on it there, but let's just go a little bit deeper. What is it they're trying to accomplish? What are they facing?
Right. You know, I mean, they're facing in this market supply chain challenges, labor shortages, and so on and so forth. And coin a phrase that you guys have created at Procensis, I hadn't thought about it this way, but kind of creating warehouse super users, you know, superheroes. And, you know, we are doing that, and it sounds kind of corny or whatever, but
Sure
essentially,
it does.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah, but we love it.
exactly. But it's so appropriate because again, at the end of the day, a superhero is doing what in our context, in our supply chain? They're doing their jobs faster. They're making the company more productive. They're being able to do more with less. And in today's market, with today's challenges, creating a superhero is really, really important, and it's solving business problems, and that's a key.
Yeah, you know, when we created the Warehouse Superheroes brand, you know, it's a speedster, and we automatically think that the users have to move faster, 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 faster. Well, that doesn't create a great user experience. Okay, that's not really what the employees want to live.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what we have realized by working with Ivanti Wavelink, okay, and then our other hardware partners, speed doesn't come from moving faster. Speed comes, realized speed comes from reducing the distance traveled, okay, and only having to cover it in the same amount of time. And so that superhero images, we want them to create superhero images, but we want them to be superheroes naturally. We want to enable the technology to create their, you know, such as the products that we get from Ivanti Wavelink upon which we build, so that they can be that much faster without having a harried day, and it makes them enjoy their job, you know, and honestly want to work longer and work and hopefully even get paid more because, you know, variable compensation is common.
Absolutely. That is definitely a key with the variable comp. There's no question about that. And also in addition to what you mentioned too, if we can improve the process flow,
Sure.
that's going to increase the speed, but not necessarily the speed, again, the benefits that they are able to achieve and, you know, drive for the business. And again, those are solving problems and are done in such a way that it's not a kind of rebuild, or it's not a just replace everything, rip and replace.
Right.
It's augmenting what they already have and making it better, which to me is incredibly key. A lot of times customers don't know about that. And so I think the combination of our two companies bring, you know, through our foundational layer of software and your integration capabilities and use case solutions that you come up with, really helps to solve some of the challenges that customers have, and they don't even know that they can go down that path, and that's what's really, really exciting.
Well, let's break it down even a little bit further. Boy, just the bullet points that are going through my head here. So let's back all the way up.
Sure.
Okay, so we're talking about green screen. Okay, I made a smart aleck remark about the matrix. Okay, but what is green screen? What do you mean by that for the viewers' education?
Yeah, I mean it's Telnet emulation. It's TE. It's emulation. These are all different phrases that are used in the industry, right? But again, going back to, you know, what we were mentioning earlier, it is if you have a handheld, a vehicle mount, a tablet that's used in a warehouse as an example, what's getting displayed on the screen that's coming down from the host application, are these green characters on a black background. It's really as simple as that.
Right.
Archaic, old, but something that's been done and used for a long time. Because a lot of times in the warehouse, typically, the processes don't change that much because they've been kind of built on year after year after year. But there are inherent to that, ways to make the process even more efficient. And I think that's what we're doing, taking it beyond just a green screen.
Yeah. So, I mean, the mobile hardware we're talking about, I mean, this happens to be, my iPhone, but it's pretty typical in the warehouse. Most everything in the industry nowadays is based on Android devices and mobile computing, and that's a Unix environment. And, for Unix, it's just another operating system. Like most of us think about Microsoft Windows because that's what most of us use in our daily day. Of course, I'm a Mac user, but that's just another operating system. But those characters, those green screen characters behind all the pretty windows, behind whether it be on a handheld or whether it be on your laptop, behind that is basically a big stream of text characters.
Correct.
Yeah. And so for years, that was the only user interface, was this green screen text.
Correct.
So whether you had a computer, a desktop computer, or you bring it to mobile, you have this thing that you need to interact with using your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be a little hard to read. It can, particularly if you're, wearing glasses,
A little bit older, or a little bit aged, like
Yeah.
myself. I can't speak for Chuck, because
look at
he's
these
much
gray beard
he's
hairs.
much younger than I am. But
Not much.
glasses and an aging workforce sometimes in the warehouse. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. So what you talk about is you're talking about making the process better. And what we're really talking about here is a transformation. Okay? And you say not just a green screen company.
Right.
Green screen's probably the most dramatic example of transformation. You're transforming that interface, that user interface. So if it's not just a green screen company, what other things do the folks see out there? What other types of technologies are they likely to see in their warehouse management system?
Yeah, I mean, so maybe it's a good time to maybe bring up this this opportunity, this customer that just implemented a new solution. Well, our Velocity solution. But I like to say that they kind of created the trifecta for our Velocity software platform. And what I mean by that is, again, going back to Velocity creates this connection to a warehouse management system, as an example. That's its basic form. But you can also take it and do more with it, right? So, and doing more is what helps drive productivity, helps solve customer problems. And as an example, in this customer, a food distributor, implemented Velocity. And again, it was Telnet. So again, the green screen characters and so on and so forth. But then they modernized the user interface. So now it looks like it's an HTML that's presented to the user in the facility, even though on the back end it's still character-based, going back to their warehouse management system.
So by HTML, so I think a lot of us know what HTML is. Not everybody's a technology geek like me. But HTML, by way of example, that is what?
The way I describe it is, it's two things to me. One, it's kind of like a browser-based interface, or really what it is, it's the way that every application is written today that you have on your phone, right? It's the graphical user interface. It's the buttons. It's the drop-down menus and things like that are presented to the user that's now using it in an improved modern user interface. But again, the background behind the scenes, it's still that green screen that goes back to the host application.
Got it. So you mentioned browser, and that is often something that I find myself discussing when I'm talking to customers. But Velocity, it's a browser.
Sure.
But it's not Chrome or Safari or
Absolutely.
Firefox or Edge or anything like that. It's not that, is it?
Right. No, it's not. And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I always talk to customers about, or if I'm visiting a business partner, you guys know this, right? Chrome is not. It's a consumer-based product. It makes a connection for the web-based application, and that's fine. But in a mission-critical environment, if you're running your business on in your warehouse on Chrome browser application, that's not necessarily the right way to go. It's consumer based. It's not industrial based, and what I mean by that is, if you, for instance, you can't interface with the scanner with Chrome, you can't secure and lock it down, so a user could be out surfing the web when they should be picking product.
All right. Wow.
You stopped me there, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, I understand this product. We're trying to make it, but right off the bat, just off the get-go, yes. I mean, folks can get distracted. And when you put mobile computing in their hand, I mean, they're used to this every day.
Right.
This form factor.
Yeah.
And they're using it for checking their email. And they're using it for surfing the web.
Right.
God forbid, I don't know where they go, but, sometimes they get out into this technology and, the next thing you know, they're part of a scam or something like that. But a product like Velocity Browser eliminates that problem. You're not bringing and introducing that stuff into the workplace by giving them a purpose-built tool.
Exactly. Essentially, what it allows you to do is if a user is supposed to only pick product or he's only supposed to receive product, then, that's what they're going to do. And they're not going to have the ability to go out and surf the web or anything like that. And that's cool. And that's not just cool. I mean, that is could be a huge security breach, right?
Sure.
And if something like a Chrome browser is used in a mission critical application, it causes a problem and you're down, that's the lifeblood of the company, is being able to get product out the door. One other thing I like to talk about, when you talk about the Velocity browser over a Chrome as an example. So everyone uses their phone to surf the web. I'm going to go make a reservation on an airline to go somewhere. And, then you have to input data on your phone, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, so what comes up on the screen sometimes is a field that's only supposed to be a numeric input.
Right.
But what pops up on the screen if you're using Chrome? The whole keyboard pops up.
Ugh.
And sometimes not even the numeric pad.
Yeah.
So what if we could, with Velocity Browser, be specific by screen or by field to pop up just the keyboard that's needed for that input? Huge benefit and productivity boost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's really what we're talking about. I mean, for the purposes of what we're using this for, it was the interface of a WMS system, warehouse management system. We're talking about data entry.
Yep.
And it's only going to slow folks down if they're presented with this entire keyboard and they have to hit shift keys to get to the numbers and that sort of thing. And some of these applications, they still use function keys, right? And so are those function keys available on a mobile user interface on that keyboard? And all those are additional key presses, and again, back to the problems that we're trying to solve. We're trying to make things faster, in this case with software. And if we could eliminate keystrokes and bring up the right keyboard, well, we're just going to speed those folks up. I mean, it may, it's only a half a second or it's only a second.
Right.
But if a transaction only takes 30 seconds, okay, and you've eliminated 6 or 10 keystrokes, that's a third of your time that you've improved. And that's one hell of a business outcome, honestly.
Sounds like you're creating a warehouse superhero.
Oh, in a way, I guess so. We couldn't do it without, someone's got to be in the Batcave, right?
Well, and the way you just described that too, talk about that over, or extrapolate that over hundreds of locations, thousands of users. So now that that improvement of what it might be, a quarter of a second on a transaction times many locations times thousands of users, pretty powerful.
Yeah, I have a small customer, a local deployment here in sunny Philadelphia, 100,000 warehouse picks a year. If they save 10 seconds per warehouse pick just because of the software user interface, now I don't know that it's going to be 10 seconds, but whatever the number is, and you multiply it by 100,000, okay, that's a lot of hours over the year that you're able to repurpose and use for something else. Right. And that's a small customer, 100,000 picks. Yeah. They're only using 10 devices. Now imagine some of the larger customers where, as you say, lots of locations, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of users in a high volume pick environment. That's a lot of money. You say more with less. I happen to like more with the same, because then I can take those people and I can have them do something else.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about there, at least in my mind, that pops into my head is the ROI.
Sure.
Right? The ROI. And so there's, when you look at the combination of what we've brought to the table for our customers, a lot of times the ROI is 3 months, 6 months. It's something incredibly powerful. And the alternative might be with a customer, is, maybe I'm going to replace my warehouse management system, or I'm
Right.
going to do this. Well,
Right.
and maybe that's a good approach. That's certainly a long-term approach. It's certainly a very costly approach. There's a lot of time involved in that, the risk potential. And that, again, may be the right approach, but a lot of times it isn't. And the way that we can present a combined solution with the software, the integration, is an example that Procensis brings to the table. Customers don't necessarily know that there's an option out there sometimes. And what's really cool is when you paint that picture with them, you talk about, how fast things can be improved, and they think about, oh my gosh, this ROI is really right around the corner. And even if they do move to a new warehouse management system in 3 years, they're gaining the benefits today that they'll likely have in 3 years as well when they move to a new system.
So really what you're saying is that the principal driver, doesn't need to be the mobile user interface. Is that, I need to improve the productivity of my workers because that's a significant cost adder to my warehouse operations. And I recognize that the user interface is part of what might be slowing them down. But that does not have to be a principal driver in upgrading to a warehouse management system. And it leads me to another interesting line of questions. That's incredible. And then you're talking about a return on investment that can begin in as little as a few months.
Absolutely.
And certainly, and it depends on the volume of the picks and the, every situation, and the transactions are different. Oh my, there's so many questions. That, certainly you can be looking at return on investment in less than a year.
Absolutely.
Right? Even if 3 months is very aggressive for any particular, but the mobile user interface no longer has to be a driver, because with Velocity Browser and your other tools, we can transform it from green screen or something else. So tell me, what kind of transformations can we make? So we talked about keyboards.
Right.
Okay. What other transformations can we make to make that better?
So one of the other things too is you could, there's a return application, where customers, something's been damaged, gets sent back in. I'm now going to take a photo of that damage to prove where where the culprit lies. Is it the shipping company? Maybe the end user did something, whatever it might be. So it's coming back into the facility. I take a picture of it. Within Velocity, we send it up to an external database. So that we can make sure that, hey, that we're tracking this return, and that, where the problem is, and maybe we're getting some money back from the UPS or whatever the shipping company might be, et cetera, et cetera. So that, that's one example that certainly we can do things, and we can even display images onto the application or to the screen. And why would we want to do that? Well, if I'm coming to pick product at the facility, and I'm not sure exactly which product to pick because maybe the part number or the SKU is a little, not quite clear. I maybe can pop up an image of what exactly I have to pick to ensure that I'm getting the kind of accuracy that I can get in the warehouse. So there's a couple of examples there.
Yeah, that's really great stuff. So, when we use our demos here, and we show our customers, interestingly enough, the product that's right behind my head, we'll actually bring up, if I'm picking Pirate's Booty, this case, it's actually going to, we actually give the folks an option to actually see that. But you're talking about doing that right from within Velocity. You're not talking about going out and having to set up some big infrastructure with another server to serve up these images. You're talking about Velocity.
Velocity is definitely the driving force. We're going to be pointing to some external database that's out there, but that's probably already out there anyway. So we're just going to make that call within Velocity, and not to get too technical because I'm not super technical. However, we make that call to an external database, and we can pull that image down, and it happens, within milliseconds.
It's super
like
fast.
Instantaneous. So it's not like that would slow things down, because we don't want to do that.
It's a shame because we have this form factor, and I call this my phone. Okay, and whether it be an Android device, like overwhelmingly most of the mobile computing devices in industry today, it's not just a phone. In fact, many of the devices that get deployed don't even have the chip in them that allows them to make phone calls, although they certainly can. But it's a mobile computer. And I think that's what we forget, and it's a heck of a powerful mobile computer. Yeah, it really is a heck of a powerful mobile computer. And once you have that in the worker's hands, you can further increase the ROI by adding new features.
Exactly.
And that's the really cool part. And Velocity allows us to do that.
Yeah.
So, So let's keep going with this transformation. So we've talked about keyboards, we've talked about images, you know, but if I'm going to transform it,
Right.
I go all the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're thinking big. I like
yeah.
it.
Well, let's see. So what are some of the things that you mentioned this food customer? So
Yeah.
tell me some of the things that they did and what
Right.
they realized in their outcome.
Right. So they not only did they modernize the user interface, like I think I mentioned before, they also did some process improvements. So within Velocity, you can do some scripting behind the scenes that when a certain direction comes down from the host application, we are going to be able to intercept that and say, hey, you know what? We're going to take action on what's being told by the application that the user needs to do next. That may not be the most efficient process. So we can do scripting, insert that into the application, into Velocity.
Sure.
And then we can kind of change the process flow to make it a little bit more efficient. So they did that. But what is really, really cool is, so the trifecta, the third thing then is they implemented Speakeasy, or voice picking system on top of Velocity. And what was really cool about this customer, and so first off, they already had a competitive voice picking solution in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It wasn't being used from an accuracy perspective. They were having real problems. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of some of the competition products, but because of how they went to locations and so on, they were picking wrong product with this voice picking, other competitive voice picking solution. With ours, they implemented it. It required them to scan at the location and scan the product that they're picking. So they knew exactly what they were getting, that it was an accurate pick every time, or almost every time. Consequently, two of the biggest benefits. One, and these are their words, these are their metrics. They're not mine. I'm not making this up.
I love hearing this stuff. Go.
And there'll be a use case coming out on this soon. So they improved picking accuracy by 80% with our voice picking solution over the competitive voice picking solution. Incredible. The second thing, though, Chuck, that I also think is awesome, and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially the user there is an old Telnet-based warehouse management system from years ago. But she described it as, it's as if we replaced our clunky warehouse management system with a new one, but they didn't get a new one.
Right.
So, I mean, I heard that, I had smiles all over my face because it's incredible.
Yeah. And these aren't just numbers. 80% pick accuracy. If you have an inaccurate pick, okay, first of all, the company might have quality control procedures in place where they're going to send that thing to someone who's going to double check that, and they're going to add additional costs to each transaction. Okay. But if you can improve the accuracy dramatically, first you improve the speed dramatically, and then you improve the accuracy dramatically, you're reducing the costs for quality assurance. And then again, I like to say, do more with the same. Now, what can I do with those highly trained people in quality?
Right.
Okay, because they're not your entry-level employees. They're the ones who've been around a while, who know your systems and know your products and know the way around your processes and your warehouse better than anybody usually. But now I can have them in other roles where their higher skill set can be used for different things.
Right.
Okay, and that's the agility of the warehouse superhero, right? That's a shameless plug. But that's really what we're going to. And you introduced the concept of reverse logistics.
Yeah.
If bad pick gets out there, and for some reason it gets missed by quality, or God forbid you don't have robust quality procedures in place, that's going to get out there, and then you've got to incur the cost of the reverse logistics.
Right.
And most importantly, the cost of a bad customer experience. And those are soft costs.
Right.
But they're kind of the worst costs. In the world of this, everything is moving at lightning speed. These consumers, or even business to business, okay, if the wrong product shows up at the wrong time, we're talking about supply chain bottlenecks, and we're having all these issues, they've got to start all over. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm remodeling my bathroom. They lost my vanity top in transit. You know what? I had to start all over again. I'm an extra month. And I do not have a happy wife. Happy wife, happy life. And she ain't happy right now because something happened in the process where they lost this thing or they broke this thing, and you have a bad customer experience.
Well, talking about look, you said soft costs on customer experience, but that translates into hard dollar costs.
Sure
right?
does.
There's no question about that.
No doubt. No doubt.
But you're right. And talk about the bathroom experience. I can't even get someone to come to my house to quote me a new bathroom that we're still living in from the house from 25 years ago. That was when it was made. So talking about happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah,
she'd like
sure.
to get the bathroom finished. So no, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and
Spot
no,
on.
we're not soliciting contractor quotes. Don't
No.
send me email. I mean, I love to talk to people, but although maybe. Hey.
Send him to Chuck though first, and
There
then he'll
you
get
go.
them to me. All right.
Perfect. All right, perfect. So, okay, so they've improved their speed. They've been able to extend the life of their warehouse management system. They've reduced the need for reverse logistics and been able to, potentially have extra hours available
Right.
for higher qualified, higher trained employees or cross-trained
Yeah.
employees. Okay, I mean, this sounds like a no-brainer to me. I just, how is it that you get from, and I think this is the real challenge, okay? How's it you get from, I have this great product, Ivanti Wavelink is a company that's been around for quite a while. You have this great product, but how do you get it from you to the end user experience?
Right.
How do you make that happen?
Well, as you know, we're a partner-driven company, right?
Okay.
So
okay.
that's kind of how we make it happen, and working closely with our partners. But again, there's no closer partner as far as the capabilities that Procensis can bring, because a lot of times customers are really just using our product in its basic fashion, like I talked about
Sure.
earlier, right?
Sure. And it has value in its basic
No
fashion,
question.
just in security and things, just on alone.
Absolutely.
Right.
And speed and reliability.
Sure.
Because again, the transactions that are happening in the warehouse need to move rapidly, right? So
Mhm.
in its basic form, it is still very important.
Mhm.
But it's a shame that we're not taking it in a lot of customers beyond that. And I
Mhm.
think it becomes an education process with the customers, right?
Mhm.
In that, hey, you've already bought this product, probably using it in its basic form. Let's just talk about what else you can do with it.
Sure.
You've already made the investment.
Mhm.
In many cases, we're not even saying you have to buy more.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, that's kind of what we're in the business of selling things, but we're
Sure.
in the business of selling things that solve customer problems.
Mhm.
And if they already have our foundational velocity product as an example, why not talk to them a little bit more about what more can be done with that does take it above and beyond just that connection, just that basic thing.
Yeah. So, one of the things that it's so strikingly simple, and your use case that you're talking about is food.
Mhm.
Okay. And one of the things that just, it's so simple, but in so many food distribution environments and food handling environments, you're talking about, because of the Food Safety and Preservation Act, I believe it's called. I mean, and just natural common sense, you need to keep this stuff cold.
Right.
And in order to make sure that you can have happy, healthy workers, they're going to wear gloves.
Yes.
Well, how are you going to deal with that with a stream of green characters on the screen? How are you going to do that with tiny little on-screen buttons or things like that? Or even if there is, some of the, technology which still works great today that has a physical keyboard, you're going to have a hard time hitting those buttons.
Yeah.
And so it was one of the first things that I picked up. It's so instinctive. I can make the buttons bigger.
Right.
I can create greater contrast for people that wear glasses like me,
Right.
so that I can make it easier to see. And I can do all that on velocity.
Yeah.
And then, as also in your use case, you're talking about integrating voice recognition. And we're not talking about just, hey, this thing is dictating to me what's on the screen.
Exactly.
We're talking about true bidirectional voice recognition.
That's correct.
And I can take all of that away.
Right. Yeah, and what we're also doing, or how we're doing it, is all at the handheld level. Everything performed from a voice perspective. The device speaking to the selector in the warehouse, and the selector, as an example, speaking back.
Mhm.
All of that capability is done on the handheld. And I think that's a key point, in that makes it much easier to implement, number one, because we're not touching the warehouse management system.
Right,
that doesn't
right,
even
right.
know
Mhm.
that we're doing voice, because it really, in its basic form, and I like to bring things back down to a simple level that I can understand.
Thank you. I need that.
There you go. It's another form of input to the device, or output from the device, just
Sure.
like you scan, or just like you maybe use the keyboard. although you want to get away from using the keyboard, obviously, if you're implementing voice.
Mm-hmm.
But in an essence, it's another form of input, the way that we do it versus some other approaches out there.
So you're talking about input. So you're literally just walking down the aisle with a mobile computer in your hand, and you're speaking to the computer.
Exactly.
Just in a conversational way.
Well, not so much conversational in the sense because we're not a Siri, right? Where we're listening for everything, but for keywords or key phrases, then it becomes conversational. Speak slower, speak faster, speak louder, repeat because I forgot what you told me to do 30 seconds ago, that sort of thing.
Old brain right here.
Exactly. Those are the types of things that I
Sure.
do. So absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Now, my when I speak, you can hear some of my family's South Philly heritage in there, and depending, I'm not exactly the best speaker in the world.
Right.
But I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. You have a Midwestern voice, okay? You have a Southern voice, you have a South Philly voice, you have a New York voice, you have an upstate New York voice. That's just accents, Then you start getting into other languages. I mean, how does the system deal with that?
So we do support multiple languages and pretty much everything that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to remember, too, is that since we're only listening for a few words, few numbers, typically, and we don't listen for someone's voice itself, we're just listening for those words.
Okay.
And so in other words, even if you have an accent, so someone that has an accent that says, and I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but the word happy. Yeah. That wouldn't be in our voice system. Don't get me wrong, but for some reason that popped into my head. But a user...
Although you could. I mean, who doesn't want a happy employee?
There you go.
Honestly.
We could do it, right?
Sure.
Now that user, because of their accent or whatever, might say when he says or she says happy, it's hippie, okay?
Yeah,
whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
We can, behind the scenes, code, and I use the word code loosely because it's not really true coding.
Okay.
But again, it's at the handheld level. We could tell the system, okay, when a happy response or word comes up, and we also hear the hippie, and we spell it Hippy, that will be recognized as happy. Mm-hmm. So again, simple ways that we can deal with people's accents and so on and so forth. But again, we're not listening to specific voices. Mm-hmm. We're listening to the words that are being said. Mm-hmm. And so if we can use grammar files is kind of what I was describing for the happy hippie type of example.
Yeah, I mean, I'm particularly sensitive to it, not in an offended way, but my grandmother, who was born in Puerto Rico, and Spanish is her first language. Yep. She spoke with that. She spoke with that heavy accent in her English. She was very proud of her English, and but she spoke in that heavy accent until the day she passed. Right. And so, I can imagine, that, my grandmother might very well, in fact, I can think she did. She worked in a place that made fish sticks, for a lot of years.
I'm sure she did.
And she could very well have been picking orders years ago. And if you had this technology, they would have had to deal with my grandmother's accent. Right. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think you would agree is that all the customers that we have that are using that voice, the Speakeasy voice system, we've not had an issue with accents or dialogues or languages that we couldn't resolve.
I love it.
And again, I'm not saying that maybe there's a situation out there that we can't handle because that wouldn't be truthful. Mm-hmm. But so far, we've been able to work through that, and in every case that I'm aware of.
Well, yeah, and today in 2022, the globe has shrunk.
Right.
It's a truly global economy. There's a tremendous diversity of workers in every situation. Especially in warehouses nowadays. In the context of what we do for a living, it's tops on my mind. And Ivanti Wavelink and companies like Procensis, well, we're doing business all over the world, right? And because the globe has truly shrunk, and it's a global economy, so that just becomes more and more important. And with these companies with lots of different locations and multinationals, they might very well have to consider a user interface with multiple languages.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's just really cool. So, wow. So not just a green screen company, huh?
No, and that's the thing. I mean, and it's kind of sad that we still have to say, hey, we're not just a green screen company. And maybe that's our fault. But, we're trying to get the word out. We're trying to educate partners and our end users. But, Yeah, it's exciting because there is a lot more that can be done with the software and its foundational layers that it brings to the table that aren't this rip and replace mentality with customers that are looking at different options.
Sure.
It's not the cost of an arm and a leg.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that can be typically implemented in a short period of time. And going back to your question about how do you get the word out? Yeah, and again, I go back to kind of the education part because it's super easy to have a conversation with the customer that's already using our product or anyone's product.
Sure.
And say, hey, let's just talk about what else can we do with it that you're not aware of necessarily, and link that to some of the challenges that they may have as a company as well, and see if we can't help them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I just love this. It's one of the things that attracted me to work with Procensis, and honestly, I didn't know how exciting it was going to. I felt it, but with every single passing day, with every week, every month, I get deeper and deeper into this, and I can recognize, how we can use tools like yours to honestly affect the lives of people better.
Right.
I mean, they're really on the ground. These people are hardworking. I have worked in a warehouse myself. I have driven forklift. I have implemented these systems. I know what the life is like, and honestly, the better that we can make it for them,
Absolutely.
The better their life is going to be.
Right.
That sounds grandiose and crazy, but it's really true. These are, when you're working this hard and you're putting the miles on, and your Fitbit or your Apple Watch is tracking your steps, your rings are closed, for sure, every darn day.
Right.
And we can make their life that much better so that they can, live happier, healthy lives, and the companies can realize a better output, and a better productivity. Well, I just absolutely love this. All right. Well, the time has come. I know Modex is around the corner.
Yes,
I
sir.
mentioned it at the
Yes.
beginning here. And, a company like Ivanti Wavelink is never just going to rest on their laurels. And so I'd like to hear what's new at Ivanti Wavelink.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for asking. So one of the new things that we are working on and developing and going to be announcing is operational insights for industrial IoT.
Industrial IoT.
So
Wow.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
More to unpack.
Right, more to unpack. So again, in its simplest form, we're leveraging, again, the Velocity platform.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, Velocity is running on these handhelds. And these handhelds are collecting all sorts of data of what's going on in the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
How much scanning am I doing? Where am I doing my scanning? What's the wireless connectivity about? I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of different parameters that we have access to within the Velocity client that we can pick and choose from. And which of those, that the data that's being collected or that's there, is important for a customer to know about that might have the ability to solve a problem that they're having in the warehouse. So we take Velocity, we're gathering data from it, and then with the industrial IoT part of it, we're creating operational insights. So what does that mean? Essentially, things that might tell the customer, hey, I've had a problem in this area. As an example, two examples. One, I'm always in this part of the facility, and I'm getting repeated scans over and over again for a certain process.
Sure.
Well, what does that mean? Well, one, the customer may not even know that that's happening because it's just happening, and people figure out that the third or fourth scan finally works and they move on. Well, that takes a little bit extra time.
Sure it does, yeah.
Right. So we can collect insights on that might say, well, your wireless coverage in this particular part of the facility is not as good as it is in other parts of the area.
Surprise.
Surprise, exactly. And that's common, right? Because you have product moving in and out, so it changes your wireless coverage. So we're collecting data that then we turn that data through industrial IoT platform into meaningful information that the customer can take action on, like I just mentioned. Or it might just be, I'm doing, how much scanning am I doing? And am I doing a scan versus a keyboard input? If I'm doing a keyboard input, what's that telling me? So that might be telling me that certain barcodes aren't efficient or readable or whatever the case might be. But ultimately what we're going to be, these are going to be solutions, they're going to be products that we're going to be announcing that allow customers to see operational insights on what's happening in their world, in their environment, that they can take action on that will improve the business. There's a bigger part of IoT coming that you're a part of at Procensis as well. Can I just throw that in as well?
Sure you can.
All right, I'm going to throw this in too. So that's one part of our industrial IoT that we're announcing. But the other thing is with this platform that we've acquired on IoT, we can then look at, let's talk about the supply chain. Let's talk about vaccines, right?
Sure.
So vaccines are shipped throughout the country, the world. In the supply chain, we need to have certain temperature ranges, right?
Yep.
So if the temperature ranges go outside of those parameters, we've got problems with the vaccine.
We sure do.
Right? And that's not a good thing.
Nope.
So there's sensors and probes within the supply chain, within the shipment of those vaccines. Now with our IIoT platform, just as an example, there's many others. There's probably hundreds that you can think of.
Sure.
But we could look at what the temperature is of that vaccine as it's gone through the whole supply chain. And we would collect that data, report back on that data, so that that data becomes information that can be used for making sure that the vaccines are reliable and still usable.
Yeah, and in fact, for vaccines, you're talking about very low temperatures. If my memory serves me, you're talking about, minus 95 degrees or thereabout, which is a heck of a cold temperature and difficult to maintain. In food safety and preservation, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that logging is required throughout the entire journey of that. So they're going to flash freeze a product, and then they're going to move it on the trucks where they have to be logging the temperature at every step of the way.
Exactly.
And if for some reason it drops too low, they might have a spoilage or a loss issue on their hands, and that's a tremendous cost to the company. And so IoT, okay, you're saying industrial IoT. What is IoT? Let's back up just a smidge.
Internet of Things is really
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things,
Okay,
absolutely. And essentially, it's pretty much everything in what we do on a daily life can be IoT compatible or compliant. It can be as simple as at the home. Your toaster or a light bulb. Right now, we're not targeting that market, right? Because we're targeting warehousing and supply chain and so on and so forth. But anything that is intelligent enough to be able to be talked to, and then we can receive information from that, is what we're talking about. The Internet of Things might be an example in a warehouse where they have a huge conveyor system. There's going to be probably IoT compatible conveyor system components that there's certain parameters, vibrations as an example, that we might say, hey, this particular component of the conveyor system is becoming outside of the compliance specs.
Sure.
So now we know this in advance of it really failing. Think about the potential that can bring to a customer and their environment and solving problems, keeping uptime going, minimizing downtime, et cetera. So it's really, really exciting. You'll want to definitely see it at Modex.
Yeah, definitely. So again, if you didn't get to Modex, and we really hope that we're seeing you there, you can definitely see these things after the fact all times. But again, when you have this in your hand, this is not just a phone, this is a mobile computer. In this mobile computer, there are accelerometers, okay? If you've ever laid your phone out in the sun, it'll say, oh, it's too hot. If you've ever gotten too cold, besides affecting your battery life, okay, your battery performance, it may get to the point where it's no longer operational.
Absolutely.
And the Internet of Things creates these sensors.
Right.
And when you have the mobile computer in your hand, you can combine sensors, okay, with your mobile computer to realize all kinds of great information. Again, for the consumer, we have the thermostat now. People are getting that. I have a video doorbell. I have a smart ceiling fan. And all those things rely on sensors. Okay,
Absolutely.
Whether it be to hear my voice, to check the temperature, to check for motion, and that's just the consumer side. And there are all kinds of sensors that you can do for all kinds of applications. And with the help of Ivanti's IoT platform, we're now able to bring that data gathering and being able to translate it into usable information for an organization so that they can further improve their operation, further reduce costs, eliminated unwanted outcomes, and ultimately ensure a great customer experience, whether it be B2C or B2B.
Right. Yeah, I love what you just said there. I mean, it's data. We're getting data and we're translating into usable information. And that's really powerful, and that's what's really exciting about coming up with the industrial IoT platform just in general. I'm really excited about that.
Wow. Well, I can't tell you if you couldn't tell, I've enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Thank you.
Truly, I have enjoyed this conversation. We got started here early in the morning.
Yep.
Thank you very much for
Thanks,
accommodating
Chuck. I
me. I
appreciate it.
cannot tell you how happy I am to have you here. It's always a pleasure when you visit Procensis. I'm very thankful for you,
Thank
my
you, sir.
friend.
Thank you.
This has actually been
Appreciate
amazing.
it. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you'd like to learn more about Ivanti Wavelink, if you'd like to see some of the things that can be done with the Velocity platform, the Speakeasy platform, and even their industrial IoT platform, contact us and you can see our one-of-a-kind virtual demo. We do it like nobody else does in the world, and we'll show you it live so you can see for yourself and experience it for yourself just exactly what you could do for your organization. My name's Chuck. I'm for Procensis. On behalf of my friend Peter Allenspach, thank you very much for watching. Have a blessed day.